So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Tsume? So let's start the series. With his arms behind his back, Naruto Uzumaki paced in front of the Hokage's desk. As the silence grew longer, his eyes narrowed and his heartbeat quickened as fear seeped into every part of his thoughts. Sweat beads trickled down his face and vanished into the thick goatee that framed his lips. He was unsure of how much longer any man, especially himself, could endure such heinous torture. "There are no missions requiring your abilities," Kakashi said with a sigh, tossing a scroll onto the completed pile. "I'm sorry, Naruto." With a pathetic groan, Naruto slammed both palms down the wood and immediately drew closer to the desk. "Don't give me that crap." "There must be something available for me," he said. "Guess ushering in an age of peace has some downsides, eh?" "Not having missions is a good thing," said the sixth Hokage, who maintained his composure while displaying signs of boredom from having this exchange every day for the previous 3 months. Naruto sank into the chairs and folded his arms like a kid who has been refused a toy at the store. "Good thing? What the hell am I supposed to do?" he asked. "Ain't got training, ain't got missions, what's a guy supposed to do to keep from going crazy?" After swiftly giving his assent and proceeding to the next scroll, Kakashi asked, "Relax? Date? Take up hobbies? All of your friends are busy building a peaceful life, some with each other," he said. The man who read pornography in public did not want to lecture Naruto about his lack of romance. "Hinata and I just didn't mix well, you know," he said, rolling his eyes. "Don't start that shit with me, Granny has been pestering me about that for the past year," he said. "I understand completely, Sai is still single, I think. Maybe I could arrange a special mission with you too, something romantic in the mountains with a hot spring." "Pass," said Naruto, trembling at the thought of falling in love with any man. "I guess I'll hang around here with you, as future Hokage. I need to learn about the basics, with Sai at the bottom of the list if he ever chose to pursue the same team. Actually, I might have something for you. The Inuzuka needs someone to help with bathing dogs," Kakashi said, his face losing color faster than an aburame running to a cockroach's rescue. Since he could create an infinite number of clones of himself, it seemed that everyone else had little work to do. "Eh? Isn't that like a D rank or something?" Kakashi refused to grant him anything lower than a C rank so that new genin teams could still participate in missions. "C rank, you will be meeting with Tsume Inuzuka too, Kiba's mom?" Kakashi smiled as he threw the mission scroll at Naruto, causing his forehead to thump dully. "Please do not interrupt me. Yes, Tsume's Kiba's mother. You'll work alongside her to clean some of their returning war dogs," he said. He raised his eyebrows. "Why is washing a bunch of mutts considered a C rank?" Akamaru is one of the laziest people, dogs, things in the entire village. "Hells, he might be even lazier than you." "If only you could get a little lazier," Kakashi said with a sigh. "Akamaru is a tracking dog, not a war dog. Most shinobi don't get to see the Inuzuka war dogs in action due to their unique personalities. Washing them can be dangerous if you annoy them too much. You might not be the best choice for this." "I'll take it. How hard can washing a bunch of stinky mutts be?" "I'll be done with this by the afternoon." "You better have something good for me when I get back," Naruto said, clutching the scroll to his breast and glaring at his former instructor. "Whatever," said Kakashi, sensing that the final barrier to his relaxation was going to leave to annoy someone else. He pulled out a well-worn, familiar orange novel and said, "Don't get bit." Naruto unrolled the scroll and carefully examined the assignment's details after arriving on the streets of Konoha. Tsume asked for a whole group of seasoned genin who could work well together under minimal supervision, and she preferred soft-spoken individuals because of the aggressive and distant nature of the dogs. The assignment had no end date, and it wasn't a concern for him. but she was paying a significant amount for the assistance and offering a bonus reward for outstanding service. Overall, it sounded like the ideal job for a few clones per dog. This was not the kind of mission he wanted, but it gave him something to do instead of training or lounging around his apartment. After stuffing the scroll into his back pocket and saying, "Can't work on an empty stomach," Naruto headed to Ichiraku's for a quick breakfast of 3 bowls of ramen and a serving of dumplings. His foolish smile persisted until the ramen stand appeared, then faded into a forced smile at the 3 people enjoying an unusually early bowl. He was about to leave when he heard a loud bark indicate that he had arrived. "Mr. Tucci was wondering if you were going to stop by. Did Lord Hokage give you a mission yet?" Kiba, Inuzuka and the other members of Team 8 turned to look at him. "Ah ha ha! Naruto," they exclaimed. "He sure did. I have to help your mom wash a bunch of dogs or something, old man. Give me 3 bowls to go, don't got time to chat too much." Naruto ran to the counter, thinking quickly. Tucci and his daughter gave a quick thumbs up, rushing to satisfy their favorite customer's demands. Kiba laughed and massaged Akamaru's head, saying, "You know, she can be a real bitch." "I'm glad she didn't ask me for help with the returning warband," Kiba said. "You shouldn't say such things about Lady Inuzuka. She is a nice woman," Hinata Hyuga said, attempting to avoid looking at her longtime crush and ex-boyfriend. "I believe she is the same person to refer to you as a mouse," Shino said as he raised his spectacles. The former Inuzuka matriarch is known to be rough in her social interactions. That's saying it lightly. Mom once scared off an entire enemy battalion with a snarl, Kiba said while sipping on his drink. "You all should have seen the relief on the elders' faces when Hana took over the matriarch position." "Perhaps she is just not a people person," Hinata said, glancing down into her bowl as she realized she was outnumbered. "Saying it lightly, I remember the night Dad fled from the compound in sheer terror. She scared him so bad that he left the village," Kiba said as he stroked his head. "Mom operates on a different set of rules." Fortunately, neither Shino nor Kiba harbored any animosity toward him and supported his decision to end the relationship. Naruto was happy that the male member of Team 8 was continuing the conversation, but he stayed silent to avoid talking to the Hyuga heiress. Their relationship lasted only a few months, but their breakup did not go smoothly. Of course, no split ever did, but the fallout from it still affected him, with some of his friends refusing to speak with him for breaking Hinata's heart. Shino shook his head, saying, "Tsume Inuzuka is the kind of woman who lives outside of society. She is an outcast in the truest sense of the word." Because of the closeness amongst Team 8, such things could be expressed openly without worrying about offending anyone. "Yeah, you're right. Hana and I have tried to get Mom to be more sociable, but nothing seems to work. Some people are meant to be alone," Kiba said, shrugging and finishing the final spring roll on his plate. Naruto recoiled at the statement because he had heard similar things about him growing up due to his status as a Jinchuriki and troublemaker. Despite everything, many villagers viewed him with warm mistrust because they could not find safety knowing that someone with so much raw power was going to the same supermarkets. "Thanks a bunch, old man. See you around dinner time," Naruto said, setting a wad of bills on the counter before turning to head for the rooftops. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed Hinata staring at him with her mouth open. Kiba, who was far from the unaware idiot that many believed him to be, put a hand on Hinata's shoulder to keep her from leaving. "Good luck dealing with Mom, Naruto. Hit me up for some training if you're not too tired later." Ever thankful, Naruto grinned broadly and said, "I can kick your ass even if I smell as bad as you." He then nodded subtly in gratitude and leaped to the closest rooftop before heading toward the Inuzuka compound. Despite having lived in Konoha since birth, he had never had the need to call at the Inuzuka or Aburame compounds, which were in the so-called Western District. Both clans had received their compounds for their assistance in the Land of Fire sometime after the First War, and 1010 was among the majority of foreigners or descendants of foreigners who lived in the district. Fortunately, colorful signposts led him to the compound, and after reading the mission scroll, the two guards at the entrance, two bored chunin occupied with a booby magazine, granted him entry. He noticed their pitying expression and pondered whether Kakashi had given him this mission as a punishment. He came much earlier than Tsume had asked, eating his first bowl of ramen in the shade of an oak tree far from the dogs barking. Basking in the afterglow, Naruto was unaware of the wolf dog's presence until a razor-sharp claw pricked his cheeks. The war kennel housing the war dogs was situated towards the back end of the compound, away from the residential buildings and the homes of more placid-tempered dogs. "Kiba's not here," Naruto said, opening one eye to see the white and gray wolf dog staring back at him with just one eye. "He's doing stuff with his team. I will tell him that you stopped by," Naruto said, covering the eye beneath the dog's remaining ear with a black eye patch. "Kakashi-sensei gave me a mission to help wash some dogs, just taking a break before heading in," Naruto said, yawning and swatting the paw away. The single black eye of the wolf dog narrowed. "Tsume requested a full genin team," the dog said. "So?" Naruto groaned and joined his hands to become 3 clones after noticing the dog's discontent. "I'm far better than a group of snot-nosed brats. She'll be jumping with joy at me being around," he said. Naruto was about to close his eyes when the wolf dog did not react and trotted inside the kennel with a heavy step that betrayed little amusement. The kennel door banged open, metal on metal, and a series of curses announced Tsume Inuzuka's presence. Spiky brown hair, a few inches shorter than his own, framed her sharp face and did nothing to conceal the raw fury pulling her purple-tinted lips back into a snarl promising pain at the slightest provocation. She stopped in front of him, her fists resting against her hips. It must have been almost 4 years since he last saw Kiba's mother, and although she was in the reserves, she looked as young as ever, with only the slightest signs of age hanging under her burning eyes. To hush Naruto, Tsume held up her hand and said, "Is this the best that asshole can do? This is the exact opposite of what I requested. Can you believe this, Koro?" With a look of both sympathy and aggression, the wolf dog said, "Yes, I can," adding, "Your reputation has never been the best. Kakashi-sensei isn't like that. I've been bothering him for a mission, and this is literally the only thing he had for me," Naruto said loudly, attracting the spurred woman's full attention. Seeing her annoyance somewhat subdued, he stood up and grinned, saying, "My clones can do most of the work." The wolf dog glanced up at its mistress and asked, "Should I break the news to him?" "Since you're already here, I suppose I'll let you help. It'll make my day seeing you torn to scraps," Tsume said, her snarl turning into a malevolent smile. "The war dogs are trained to attack clones on sight. No clones this time, boy. Hope you've learned more tricks than that," she said, noticing his spirit slipping. After taking a deep breath and nodding, Naruto followed her into the kennel. Suddenly, 16 pairs of black, ravenous eyes were staring at him as the war dog's growls and yelps stopped. He wished that some god or goddess would be on his side and regretted bothering Kakashi for a mission. With the savage smile of an uncivilized mother, Tsume strode down the center aisle of the kennel and said, "Listen up, ladies and gentlemen." He examined each of the muddy dogs, saying, "Naruto Uzumaki, that Naruto Uzumaki has been ordered to give each of you a bath with my help. He has not been around any dogs before, aside from the runt Akamaru, so let's all make sure to give him a warm reception, Naruto. Who is your next of kin?" "What?" Kuramaru sat down beside Naruto and leaned in to whisper, "Play along, this is her favorite part. The person who will take care of your remains and possessions in case of your unfortunate demise," Kuramaru said. Naruto massaged the back of his head and laughed nervously, trying to sound like a green genin about to urinate. "Irika-sensei is kinda like my dad," he said. Tsume gave a slight nod. "Remember the name, hounds, he'll be the one coming to pick the boy from your teeth if he messes up. A raucous chorus of snarls and bark now. I will take each dog from their cage and bring them to the wash station in the other room. You'll oversee giving them a scrub and rinse. After that, I'll take care of the rest. Should be able to get through half of the pack by the end of today. Kuramaru walked him to the wash station, explaining the fundamentals of dog washing, and Naruto sensed that she was a woman who expected all of her orders to be followed without question. On the plus side, this gave him a mission for 2 days, so he wouldn't be bored. Yes, ma'am, was her tone, leaving little room for disagreement. Repeat back my instructions, Kuramaru said, jumping upon the table to gaze at him when he finished explaining. Naruto scratched the back of his head and said, blue soap first, rinse, then switch to the yellow soap, rinse and brush, finish with pink soap, hoping it was the right sequence. All right, Kuramaru said, perking up one ear. It looks like the dogs are excited to start, and Tsume's giving them a pep talk to help them relax. You can understand them? Of course, I am a dog, but I thought where you spoke. Ah. That, Kuramaru said as he got up from the table. A few of us, when bonded to the right owner, can gain the ability to speak like a human. It requires years of training and a kind temperament from the trainer. Kind disposition. The woman's statement that he would be the dog's next kibble meal seemed strange. Will Akamaru speak? No, while a great companion, Kiba lacks the instinct to form that kind of bond. So, it goes beyond being just friends. You must truly understand one another on a spiritual level, Naruto said, closing his eyes as he reached out to Kurama. He felt a warm, moist feeling against his cheek that resembled an animal's nose. His best friend's act of affection made him smile. When Kuramaru heard the metallic clink of a cage door opening, he paused and said, "Prove me right, son of Yuzu. Your first customer is on his way." You must have formed such a bond with another, he said knowingly. It takes a special type of person to do so. I have a feeling these dogs will take to you well. He remembered his early meetings with Kurama and resolved not to be the brat who agitated the beast that endured as much suffering as he had. Naruto braced himself as the first dog stormed into the room with a storm of snarl and spit. It met his eyes and immediately assessed him as a possible rival. He patted the station's metal table with a soft smile. Come on up. You're about to get the whirlpool wash. The beast looked at him fearfully and moved slowly toward the table. When Naruto saw that the beast was about to run to the open door, he chose a different strategy and turned the hose on himself. Wouldn't do anything to you that I wouldn't do to myself, you know, he said. Kuramaru watched the dog jump onto the table without hesitation, allowing the bath to begin in a seldom-seen calm. He looked at Tsume, who was standing at the door with her arms crossed and had a ghostly smile on her face despite her feral appearance. Few members of the Inuzuka clan and even fewer outside the clan thought of themselves as equals to the dogs, and those who did were given a knowledge of the beast that words could never fully convey. His one eye went back to Naruto, and he gave a pleasant bark as the boy, friend, started with the blue soap. Tsume stepped beside Naruto and watched his handiwork critically. Excellent. The blue soap will break up all the mud and allow the yellow shedding shampoo to work properly. Amateurs always skip the initial wash, Tsume said. Don't be afraid of using those fingernails to scrub, you won't hurt them, Naruto said, pushing harder as more mud came off. That's good, give him a rinse and move to the yellow, don't worry about the setting, we use it just to loosen some of the fur, makes my job far easier, Naruto grinned as more mud came off. What's the pink shampoo for? Makes him smell good. Naruto never understood the enigma of wait, if these dogs use such shampoos, why does Kiba smell? His closest friend's dog always had a faintly disagreeable odor with him, which he always thought was from Akamaru or the other dogs who lived with the Inuzuka. Thank you. Kuramaru and I have been trying to tell that blockhead to bathe more. Just be glad that Kurenai convinced him to shower more than once a week, Tsume said, laughing and pounding her fist on the wall while fighting to stay upright. Even though Naruto was raised as an orphan, personal hygiene was a top priority, so he washed every day, even while on missions. Maybe you could make a mission for the village, he said, his face contorting at the prospect of body odor. Yeah, and then Kakashi will make you do it. On second thought, maybe we should just let him stew in his own stink for a bit, Naruto poked out his tongue. We'll chalk it up to his own special personality. Knowing that the other dogs would behave properly for Naruto, Kuramaru sighed and lay down. It is fortunate that you lack the nose to truly appreciate his odor, Kuramaru said. Both Naruto and Tsume were absorbed in their work, and the morning and afternoon flew by. Because of how smoothly the work went, neither of them chose to take a break in the hopes of finishing the entire kennel in a single day, which would have broken a long-standing record that dates back to the early days of the Inuzuka in Konoha. Although they worked hard and had little trouble with even the liveliest of dogs, they were only able to complete 12 baths by the time Kuramaru awoke from his mid-afternoon nap. Naruto sprayed disinfectant on the table and said, "I'm really sorry, ma'am. This is my first time doing this. I thought for sure we were going to make it," he said. Naruto did not know whether the feral woman's desire to intimidate him had changed because she was tired or because she respected his work ethic. "Don't apologize to me, pup, this was the most fun I've had in a long time," she said. "We'll be able to finish up the last 4 tomorrow morning before lunch," Naruto said. "I'll be here bright and early, this was a blast. Well, whenever you want to help, you're welcome to tag along with me. Ain't every day I get a good helper around here," Tsume said after vacuuming the last hair and emptying the bag into a trash bin. He found great meaning in the simple statement, "Sure." Once you look past all the biting and glares, all the dogs are pretty friendly. You can't judge a book by the cover, you know? It was years before anyone paid him any attention, save from the Fox's host, who stole a lot from the community. Tsume checked the wash station again to make sure everything was in order. "Looking good. We always want to ensure this place is left clean in case a team comes back late from a mission. Nothing sucks more than coming home with a dirty dog and finding the washroom a mess," she said. "Good. I'm sure we'll be able to beat the damn record in a few weeks. Imagine everyone's faces when our names are placed above the kennels in honor," she said. Kuramaru yawned and stretched, asking, "Should I walk him to the gate?" "No, I shall do it. Head back home. I'm making steak tonight to celebrate a good day of hard work." Naruto, who was terrified to do laundry for the 3rd time that week, looked at his saturated jacket and said, "Kiba will love that. I bet he can wolf down a few ribeyes," he said. Tsume laughed as she said, "Kiba won't be having any. He is too old to have mommy cook for him anymore. At least, that's what he tells me. Since moving out, the boy has developed an obsession with fast food." The Inuzuka male only concerned about the fact that the women did not appear to mind that Kiba's belly had grown a few inches since last winter. He has gained a few pounds as of late, Naruto thought, although this was not at all alarming. "You don't live with the rest of the clan?" Although her smile lacked the brightness of the previous ones, she said, "No, I've moved out to a small place in the forests outside the compound. Gives me and Kuramaru plenty of privacy. It's time that the Inuzuka enter a new age, can't have a dinosaur walk around," she said. Naruto scowled for a minute, hoping the 2 elderly coots would expire before he became Hokage. "You're not a dinosaur. Granny Tsunade is the only dinosaur I know, and those 2 advisors that bother Kakashi with dumb problems," he said. Tsume laughed as he opened the door for him. "There is far more to being a dinosaur than just wrinkles. Inuzuka lifespans are far longer than the average person, with only the Uzumaki living longer. Hell, my mother lived to be almost 150 before dying." Naruto, who detested self-deprecating humor, frowned deeply as he followed her, saying, "Well, you're still not a dinosaur. I bet you can still kick a lot of butts. If you're a dinosaur, you're a T-Rex." You're one hell of a motivational speaker, kid. You'll be an amazing Hokage from the speeches alone, Tsume said, laughing heartily at the remark. The former Cyclops prepared him for the role through humorous conversations, usually about specific Narutoisms that were better kept under wraps. Well, Kakashi-sensei did warn me about not having too long of an acceptance speech, he said, although he still had many years before being named Hokage. They arrived at the front gate of the compound, still discussing the numerous things Kakashi had warned him not to do like Hokage did. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, realizing that it was time to leave the wild woman's company. Despite Kiba's warnings and first impressions, Tsume was much more fun than anyone else in the village. Even while working, she managed to maintain an infectious merriment that made the room lively. To the prudish, this was a sign of a free spirit that was not all that different from Jiraiya's self-perception. Tsume extended her hand, which Naruto accepted for a firm shake. Thanks again for the help today, needless to say, but you proved me wrong, she said. Damn shame you weren't born into the clan. With your talent for dogs, you would have been a fierce warrior, she said. Many people applauded him, but few were able to do so in a way that seemed truly sincere. I just can't wait to come back. I'll be here early tomorrow morning, he said, smiling and rubbing the back of his forehead. If we get done early enough, I'll prepare a special lunch and celebration. The scroll did mention a bonus reward. May the road rise to meet your feet, Naruto. Tsume pushed open the front door of her cottage home, threw her flak jacket over one of the 3 chairs around the fireplace, and ran both hands through her hair as she felt the beginnings of fatigue creep into her head. Although she was an old coot, she was aware that the first signs of aging were beginning to catch up with her. She could no longer work a full day and spend the entire night feasting with her friends and family. Instead, she preferred a quiet evening at home with Kuramaru and a good book. Regarding the dog, Kuramaru sat in the kitchen by the porcelain bowl that bore his name. The wolf dog observed her with a peculiar look that was tinged with interest. Speak your questions, Koro. How did the boy perform today, in your opinion? Naruto did a good enough job for an outsider. Kuramaru motioned toward the refrigerator and pushed her forward to finish preparing dinner. We both know he did far better than that, he said. What am I supposed to say? Given that he is the current Toad Sage and the host of an animal spirit, it makes reasonable that he is naturally attracted to dogs and most likely animals in general. Tsume took 2 enormous steaks out of the refrigerator, used her claws to cut the packaging open, and got them ready for a brief trip to a hot burner. You seem to enjoy his company, you even invited him back, Kuramaru said as she shifted to her side to observe the meal preparations. All right. When was the last time you genuinely desired company? An exile does not deserve the joys of company, she said while she waited to answer, concentrating on perfectly seasoning the meat and buttering the skillet. You are not an exile, the fight was unfair and should never have happened, you bear no shame from the duel, and what kind of mother would spill her child's blood? Kuramaru's quiet indifference burst into wrath. Perhaps you're right, but the end result remains the same. Tsume adjusted the stove's knob to medium-high. Hana challenged my position as matriarch with the backing of the packheads. I could not rise to the challenge and lost. It is better this way. The clan wishes to move in a direction that runs against my ideology. My continued presence would only serve as a roadblock. There was a tense silence as the companions tried to grasp each other's viewpoints without compromising their own. I hope he does show his face around more often, Tsume conceded. It feels nice knowing someone shares a belief similar to mine. Tsume took his steak out of the skillet first, and Kuramaru went back to his dish. You're both untamed and noble, he said. Damn bad he was not born among the clan, he said, with a sly grin on his snout. Damn shame he was not a few years older, eh? With a fork in hand, Tsume whirled around and said, do not start that type of talk. I am merely speaking hypotheticals. Imagine the pair of you roaming the remote forests of the world together. exploring the forgotten places of humanity in search of ancient lore, and spending the night entangled in each other's embrace. Either you're far more creative than I've given you credit for, or you have been reading some garbage. I've only been reading the stuff you buy. Let's enjoy our dinner in silence. Tsume ate her plate of meat and potatoes much more slowly, preferring the taste to the feeling of eating, while Kuramaru, sated by his victory, wolfed down his steak quickly and reveled in the afterglow of a full stomach. The evening went by with little conversation between them as they both concentrated on their relaxation rituals. Kuramaru broke the silence after Tsume went to bed with him at her side. My words were not of jest. You should seek the company of the son of Yuzu. Isolation is not good for anyone. Tsume lifted her book a little but gave in to the wolf dog's need to cuddle closer to her. I am far from isolated, old friend. You are always around to bother me, she said. I shall be content if he holds true to helping out around here, she said. It would not be fair to the other customers of the ramen stand if he showed up in such a state, and he did not want to hurt the old man's business by driving away potential customers. Therefore, a nice bath, a few cups of ramen, and a quick trip to the convenience store for a popsicle sounded like the perfect way to wrap up an awesome day. Naruto chose to go straight home after a long day of washing dogs rather than going out for dinner because he loved ramen, ayam, and tuchi. Fantastic day? The idea baffled him because, in his opinion, washing dogs all day was not an awesome day. Nevertheless, the mission went well overall and he gained a friend in Tsume Inuzuka, which made him pause for a moment. The half-feral woman made everything amazing with her mix of toughness and humor, which gave him a sense of confidence that made his heart skip a beat. She could be kind one minute and ready to throw down the next, warrior and woman in perfect harmony. He had a fantasy of marrying a woman like Tsume. How on earth am I thinking this? The brief relationship with Hinata left him with a bad taste for romance, even though Tsunade and Kakashi urged him to try dating again. The last thing he needed at this point was a silly crush on a woman in her 60s. Naruto shook his head free of schoolboy fantasies and reprimanded himself for thinking of such unnecessary distractions on his way to Hokage. Eventually, after a long bath and 6 cups of instant ramen, his mind was calmed enough to muster the energy to pick up a popsicle. He arrived at the convenience store when an all-too-familiar voice spoke to him like the first breath of spring. Naruto. It's been a long time. Oh. Sakura, I'm glad to see you're back in town, Naruto said, turning to face the former Team 7 medic, who ran down the street toward him with a smile on her face. She had left the village a few months earlier to practice medicine overseas in order to obtain the experience needed to take over the hospital from Tsunade. It feels wonderful to be back. Traveling is fun, but nothing beats the comfort of home, Sakura said, stopping in front of him and beaming with uncontrollable delight. She continued to inspect him with a professional glance, as if she could diagnose him with a look like that. Love that goatee. It suits you well, she said. He motioned for her to follow him. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei won't allow me grow a beard but gave in about the goatee after I started bugging him, he said. When did you return? I was going to come see you this afternoon, but Kakashi told me you had a mission, she said, looking down and biting her lip. I'm sorry about Hinata, Ino told me everything, she continued. Sure, she did. Don't say it like that. I've known Ino longer than you and can tell when she is making stuff up, she said with a hand on his shoulder. Some things don't work out. You are not obligated to stay with someone because of their feelings alone. Thanks, I'm just over the romance thing. Kakashi-sensei appears content with his single status, but Pervy Sage lived his entire life without being married. Don't say such things. I know a good woman will see you for the real prize you are, someone who will understand you on a deeper level, Sakura said with a scowl before releasing her hold. Perhaps, enough about me. Tell me about your vacation in detail. Despite being one of the wealthiest countries in the world, the Land of Fire still had many frontier towns without trained medical personnel on site. Sakura stayed busy helping with checkups and simple surgeries, urging patients with more complicated problems to see medical help in the major cities. As a future Hokage, he hoped to create a system to bring such aid to all corners of the Land of Fire, and Sakura would be the perfect woman to see his vision completed. They both purchased a popsicle and went to the park to enjoy the traditional summer treat. "So, Kakashi-sensei finally gave you a mission," Sakura said, wrapping the popsicle stick in the wrapper. He seemed amused about the whole thing but wouldn't say what it was about, Sakura said. "Nothing too serious, just needed to help Kiba's mom with washing a bunch of dogs. I'll have the whole thing finished tomorrow morning." "Oh. Miss Tsume, once you get to know her, she's a sweet woman." "Hold on, do you know Tsume?" "Yes, please. Just before the war began, I even operated on her for my first appendectomy." "What's your first?" "Removal of the appendix. Sorry, I forget that not everyone is medically trained." Naruto laughed, finding Sakura's academic demeanor to be both endearing and humorous. Now that she was back in town, things would get better. "I might help her a little more once the mission is finished. God's no Kiba won't help her," is an understatement of the utmost extent. "She seems pretty cool." Sakura gave him a sisterly back rub and said, "You're doing a good thing," adding, "She is a good woman who has recently been treated cruelly." Indeed, Kiba didn't say anything flattering about her, and Shino seemed to think less of her. He was more scared than inspired, you know? The often outspoken woman appeared to pause, biting on her lips in a display of intense mental battle similar to his when deciding which ramen flavor to order. At last, she stepped closer to him after checking to make sure no one was watching. "Lady Tsunade and I routinely take her out to lunch, master, and she are good friends going back to before the Third War or something. Sometime last year, Hana challenged her to a duel to lead the clan." Wait, Kiba's mother was challenged by Kiba's sister? Why would they do such a thing? Though the memories of Hinata being beaten by Niji still plagued his dreams, he was aware that the Hyuga liked to put members against one another. Despite this, the Inuzuka appeared to be much more family-oriented for such activities. She did with the backing of the clan's elders or pack heads from each of the 7 major packs that make up the clan. It's a ritual only used in the most drastic of circumstances. Apparently, something triggered much of the clan to turn against her. Tsume's really awesome, but Kiba's sister is really nice too. Hana couldn't possibly defeat her. You're right, but she is not the one to attack her child. Instead, she allowed Hana to win the fight and chose to become an exile living on the fringes of the clan's compound. However, why would Hana act in this way? What would make the clan turn against Tsume? That's internal clan politics for you. Konoha gives clans complete autonomy on how to govern their members and structure. She took the exile quite hard and closed herself off from the outside world. You must have left quite the impression on her if she wanted you to return. Naruto was grateful that he didn't have to deal with a clan. In many respects, being an orphan was preferable to growing up in such a setting. Having a family meant that one mistake could put him in danger of losing the support of the entire clan. As an orphan, his life was his own, with no boundaries. It was better to never have a family than to be expelled from one. I disagree with this course of action. Good. To stress the point, I have the sudden urge to defecate in the house. Okay, Tsume said, snapping the cookbook shut and frowning at Kuramaru. The wolf dog rarely objected to her behavior so bluntly. "Tell me why you don't like me making ramen. Didn't you propose last night that I attempt to become friends with him?" Kuramaru was sprawled out on his dog bed. Ramen is a delicate dish that requires months of training to prepare from scratch for even the best cooks. Meanwhile, Naruto's obsession with the dish is known worldwide. You have 0 chances of producing a bowl that will satisfy him. I suggest cooking something that you take pride in. This allows him to see a glimpse of who you really are. It appears far more genuine. Real? An inkling of my true self? This is not a first date, rather, it's a supper to reward him for a job well done. In an attempt to fall back asleep, the wolf dog yawned languidly and closed his remaining eye. He no longer enjoyed being woken up so early and preferred to sleep in until late in the morning. Retirement offered many advantages, and he was eager to fully utilize sleeping in. Regretfully, Tsume preferred to wake up before sunrise, so his suggestion resonated with her, and she began to ramble on about ways to improve Naruto's ramen since waking earlier than usual. Whatever, just make something simple that you're good at. Except for making lavender cookies for Tsunade during the holidays, Tsume had not prepared meals for anyone other than Kuramaru since the beginning of her exile. Aside from grilling or frying meat, the majority of her meals for her kids consisted of a variety of soups and stews that could be reheated throughout the week, depending on their frequently conflicting schedules. Tsume leaned into her recliner and drummed her fingers against the armrest in an attempt to figure out what to make. Ramen was comparable to a stew or soup. Stew made with pork. Tsume jumped from her seat and rushed to the fridge to make sure she had a pork tenderloin available. She frowned upon finding the lack of any suitable cuts. Kuramaru. The wolf dog's complaining made her smile. Don't be like that, I'm trying to gain his company. You're to help Naruto with the rest of the dogs this morning. I need to run to the market. She knew her best buddy wouldn't disappoint her, because he never did, so she left the house with her wallet before Kuramaru could put up more of a fight. The exiled matriarch would say goodbye to her children and the few friends who remained by her side before embarking on a final hunt, destined to never be seen in the world of men again, with Kuramaru by her side. Early morning walks across the compound always managed to calm her mind. Thick mist settled among the tall trees and mixed with the howls of the waking packs that awakened something primordial that called her to flee from Konoha to the world's wild places. Not just yet. The time would come, but not yet. Kiba needed to mature into his own, ideally with a beautiful young woman and a few pups. Hana was still figuring things out as the clan's leader, which put her in a precarious position that Tsume wanted to get out of as soon as possible for the sake of her daughter's welfare. No, her family needed her presence for the challenges that lay ahead. She wouldn't find that ultimate freedom until her duties were over. In order to accommodate the shinobi who were leaving or returning on missions, Konoha's markets were open 23 hours a day, with a specific hour set aside for stocking or receiving shipments. This put a lot of strain on the merchants, but it made sure that everyone had access to goods. As a single mother, Tsume frequently used it to help her shop for groceries for her kids, but now she was able to shop alone. She discovered a large 3-pound pork tenderloin on sale that would feed Kuramaru and herself for the remainder of the week in addition to preparing Naruto's stew. She completed her purchases with a package of dried thyme leaf and canned chicken broth. When she got home, Kuramaru had already left, so she had plenty of time to make the stew and clean the house. Since the stew would only take an hour to prepare and cook, the house came first, and Kuramaru would not let her relax about cleaning if she let Naruto into their house when it was in such a state. Dusting, sweeping, and mopping took up the majority of the morning because of the accumulation of dust and dirt, but the effort was well worth it. The musty smell of the cottage had been replaced by a sweet citrus scent that would please any visitor. Tsume was satisfied with her work, and after a quick shower, she faced the challenging task of choosing what to wear. Her regular black bodysuit, covered by her flak jacket, worked most of the time, but seemed to conflict with the mood she wanted to create for Naruto. Genuine, Kuramaru advised her to make something she liked in order to be more open with her new friend. Her wardrobe was mostly made up of bodysuits in various natural tones that could be worn in any setting a mission could take her, along with a few suits she had for formal events she had to attend as a matriarch. Neither of these options appealed to her, and at last her gaze fell on the one item of feminine clothing she owned, a violet sundress that she had worn, but couldn't recall when or where she had worn it. How recently have I worn something even slightly similar to this? Koda was the last person she wanted to think about right now, so she took the dress out of the closet and checked it for holes. It was in good shape, if a little wrinkled, but that could be fixed with a quick trip to the dryer. I doubt even Kuramaru would suspect me wearing something like this. About time I show that old dog that I can learn new tricks, she said. Naruto observed Kuramaru herding the final dog into its cage. Without Tsume's assistance, the task took much longer to finish, and each dog's bath required much more work. Kuramaru's instructions gave him direction, but he was responsible for doing all the work himself, and he regretted skipping breakfast. Kuramaru observed him close the cage door and said, "Congratulations, we're done with the entire warband." "Not too bad, all things considered. Some will be proud of your hard work," Kuramaru said. Sakura's words from the previous evening warned him not to hold her absence against him, but she needed to attend to some personal matters. "Guess so," he said, not needing her assistance but enjoying her companionship. Kuramaru led Naruto out of the kennel, trotting ahead of him with a joyful gait more appropriate for a puppy than an experienced veteran. "She is an exceptional cook. Her parents were cooks who passed some of their knowledge onto her," Kuramaru said, encouraging him. "Cheer up. Tsume is probably back home preparing you something amazing to eat," Kuramaru said. "Really? Were they not in charge of the Inuzuka?" "They did not. Tsume did not come from the line of the previous patriarchs," Kuramaru said, shaking his head. "Really? I assumed that, like Hana, Hanabi, or Shino, she would have been raised to assume the role. Far from it, she was the first of her entire bloodline to be given the honor of taking a companion and allowed battlefield honor. Her heroism in the years before and during the Third War saw the elders grant her the leadership of the clan, so why did they let Hana challenge her?" Naruto scowled and cocked his head. With his eyes narrowed and his ear relaxed, Kuramaru froze and slowly turned to Naruto. "And who told you of such things?" Naruto stepped back and laughed uneasily, regretting his direct question. "Don't you think you heard it on the streets?" "Humph." Kuramaru returned to the cottage with less energy than before. "I will not speak on the matter directly, but will have you know that Tsume did nothing wrong. It is a tragedy that the clan she dedicated her entire life to turn its back on her. She might love Hana as a daughter, but the girl holds no special place in my heart. Do not speak of such things again. I just don't understand how anyone could think of Tsume as a bad person. On the contrary, she is nice and works hard. Even Granny likes her, and Granny only likes gambling." "Careful, pup, I might just start liking you," the wolf dog said, pausing again to examine Naruto. Seeing an opportunity to shift the conversation, Naruto grinned and said, "So, where are Kiba's grandparents?" "He didn't bring them up." "Long dead and buried," Kuramaru spat at the dirt. "They were killed when Tsume was still a child during the kinslaying at Mount Mayo." "What? Did the academy not teach you about it?" "I wasn't a very good student. That, or it is a dark moment in Konoha's history that certain people wanted to be forgotten. Do not worry about it, such things are probably better left in the past." The response irritated Naruto, and the title alone made the event seem significant. He noted that Sakura, a walking encyclopedia, was the best place to start when researching the event. In addition, any elderly person with extensive knowledge of the village's history should know a little about any terrible incident known as the kinslaying, so Tsunade and those two old advisors must have information. However, Hamura and Kohara were keen to gain his trust because he was Kakashi's obvious heir. He enjoyed when a plan came together. "What is Tsume producing, then?" "She has plenty of dishes up her sleeve, so prepare for an ambush on your taste buds," Kuramaru lied, not wanting to ruin the surprise. Lost in their thoughts of food and gloomier times, they reached the front door of the cottage. Naruto knocked on the front door and, a few seconds later, the true beauty of the house emerged. He admired the exterior of the small, one-story stone house, enjoying the rustic appearance that few buildings in Konoha managed to capture with the ever-increasing modernization efforts of Kakashi. The large round windows of colorful glass gave the entire thing a fairy tale appearance that reminded him of the stories the third Hokage used to read to him. Mother of the stars, Kuramaru's jaw fell and his lone eye grew wide. Naruto's schoolboy dreams came back to life in a flash of brilliance. Tsume stood in the doorway grinning broadly. She wore a wrinkle-free violet sundress that hugged her body comfortably and showed off far more of her natural curves than she had anticipated. Additionally, the low cut in the front gave guests a better glimpse of her womanly assets. Her usual purple lipstick and eyeshadow were still there, but they were applied much more prominently than usual. A golden necklace and a pair of crescent-shaped earrings completed the look she had never imagined herself wearing in these final days of her life. "I was wondering when you lot would show up," she said, as Kuramaru and Naruto inspected every inch of her appearance, nearly blushing as the young man's face turned a tomato hue. Seeing that they were motionless, she reached forward and put a finger on Naruto's nose to break the spell. "How do I look?" I wanted to give something new a try. Sapphire Eyes tried to remember her. Naruto felt the world spin around him as the woman's words enveloped him like a lovely mist, and his head gave way to the heart of a man who caught a glimpse of the sacred feminine that poets and romantics revered in the early evenings of Silver Light. Beautiful. Her expression gradually broadened, shifting from pride to excitement. "What are your thoughts, dear Kuramaru?" Bark, bark, bark. "Well, what the hell is wrong with you?" Naruto asked, staring down at the wolf dog with a perplexed expression. "Kuramaru, come on, buddy, speak out." As the dog kept barking, Tsume leaned against the door casing, laughing and on the edge of tears. "I broke him," Tsume said as he gently scratched his face. "Our bond and connection allow him to speak like us, along with complex thoughts. However, that connection can confuse him if I do something completely unexpected. It appears that my little game may have worked too well." They observed the dog for a few seconds before Naruto shook his head in laughter and sympathy. He could not hold the poor dog responsible. What could a single dog do in the face of the divine? Kuramaru barked again before sprinting into the yard to run laps. "He'll be fine in an hour or two once his brain processes everything. In the meantime, let's enjoy lunch alone," she said, suppressing another burst of laughter as Naruto's face flushed. It seemed that she could still make a good man blush after all these years, so maybe Kuramaru was right to keep him around. "What did you do?" Well, what did I do?" With Naruto at his heels, Tsume entered the house and said, "I would rather not until later in the day." "Come. I made you a delicious and filling pork stew that will leave you speechless." As she went to the kitchen to prepare the bowls, he nodded foolishly and sat in one of the chairs by the unlit fire. The interior of the house matched the exterior's fairy tale aesthetics, with warm, rustic hues and bright brown wood that reminded him of a home he had never had. Trinkets from her many adventures stood proudly on her shelves, hinting at the exotic places she had been. He saw a flintlock pistol carried by some sea raiders who frequented the coastlines in search of easy prey, as well as a curved sword from the desert kingdoms beyond the borders of the Land of Wind. Other items of a more personal nature included numerous photographs of Kiba and Hana from their childhood, as well as a much younger but still very inebriated Tsunade. The most intriguing was the oldest-looking picture of a young brown-haired girl wearing a green robe, holding a small gray puppy in front of a gate with a red swirl. "Photography is one of my hobbies, mostly nature pictures, but I made sure to capture the important things in my life." Tsume brought a tray with 2 bowls, a rye loaf, and a yellow bottle of wine into the room. She placed it down between 2 seats and then went to a cupboard to get a pair of glasses for the wine. "I hope you do not mind wine with lunch. It's an old tradition of the Inuzuka to serve meals with alcohol." The golden liquid tasted sweet and bold, with a pleasant spice taste that tingled his tongue. "Thank you," Naruto said, smiling as he accepted the offered glass. Jiraiya, who almost always preferred sake or beer with his food, advised him to get used to such things for formal events. Fortunately, he much preferred the taste of wine over sake and beer. "I picked it to enhance our meal," she said, taking a drink from her glass and swirling it around. "Honey wine, fermented honey with a special combination of clove, cinnamon, and metasweet," she said. Naruto accepted one of the bowls, eager to taste the meat, and was pleasantly surprised by the stew's flavor, which reminded him of ramen but heartier and brought back memories of bygone eras. He could smell the perfume of pork and thyme as he stared into the bowl. Why haven't I experienced this previously? Since this was the first time they had experienced these flavors combined, it felt like a crime. Regretfully, Tucci had new rivals in town. The taste buds of most people in the village are far too refined for such a dish. You'll eat well today, there is plenty even for one with such an appetite. The best part was Naruto's covert partner in crime. They shared stories about their everyday lives and feasted together. Tsume laughed at how Naruto annoyed the Hokage, including when he stole his collection of pornographic books and threw them all over the village. It turns out that the man still pulled his childhood practical jokes, but in a more covert way that made it impossible for anyone to blame him. Naruto leaned back in the chair, enjoying a piece of bread and the glow from a perfectly prepared meal. "So, Kurama and I spent all day looking for the right ratio of stink to itch powder to put into Lee's jumpsuit," Naruto said. "We finally settled on a 30-70 combination that made him run around the training field. Sadly, he thought it was his own flames of youth activating and enjoyed it. Note to self, if I irritate you, I'll wake up with pink hair or itchy underwear." Who would have guessed that the nine-tailed fox was so funny? "You have nothing to worry about, Kurama, and I only prank people who truly deserve it. I sometimes wonder if I inherited my love of pranking from him, some side effect of him being sealed in me." "So, were you two friends forever?" "No way. Sakura is my best friend, but Kurama is more than just a best friend. The fox and I detested each other until we came to an understanding during the war, and even then, it took some time for us to truly become close after the war. It reminds me of Kuramaru and me. He is so much more than a best friend or companion. I cannot imagine a life without him being by my side." Exactly. Few others can relate to Kurama and me. We complement one another and cover one another's deficiencies. I almost want to meet this fox. He sounds like an absolute riot. He's currently snoozing in a cave somewhere, but I'll arrange for you to meet him later," Naruto said, closing his eyes. "A cave? I assumed he would be imprisoned inside of you." "He is, sort of. We made a new seal that gave him a physical body to go around outside and kept him in touch with me. Our mental connection is still there, so we can communicate all the time." Wonder what he does with that freedom. I doubt he has many hobbies being a giant demon fox. How a fox taller than any building in Konoha was going to reproduce with a standard-sized fox still baffled Naruto, but he decided it was best not to think about it in order to avoid conjuring up images of things best left to the imagination. Mostly chases after vixens, Naruto rolled his eyes at Kurama's obsession with female foxes. It seems that he wants to set up a harem of vixens to create an entire army of miniature nine-tails to finally prove he is the greatest of all the tailed beasts. Keep him away from Kuramaru. The fucking dog likes to go out at night to socialize with certain packs of wolves outside the hamlet, and I can assure you that some of those wolves have markings that are a bit too similar to his own. Agreed, the world cannot handle those two becoming wingmen for each other. While her lunches with Tsunade were enjoyable, they never had a casual vibe. With Naruto, she could let her hair down and be as impolite as she wanted. Tsume laughed and shook her head at the idea. Talking casually about the nine-tailed fox and having lunch with her son's buddy felt like a daydream. You brought up nature photography. Have you had any publications? Oh no, I am an amateur that just takes pictures of the animals I hunt. Hunt? Tsume's smile turned savage as she took an album from a bookshelf and said, "Yeah, that's my favorite pastime. There's something about going into the wilds with nothing to find the biggest, meanest son of a bitch to take home to mount on a wall. My trophies still reside in the main hall of the compound as an inspiration for all the young pups," she said, opening the book to reveal a picture of a grizzly bear. Took this bad boy down with a javelin and a few arrows. Kuramaru distracted it long enough for me to deliver a killing blow to the throat. His pelt is currently on my bed. Incredible, I always wanted to go hunting but never had anyone to teach me. Jiraiya looked down on the practice, and Kakashi rather read his books. Some looked through the album for a specific picture and said, "I think you found the right woman. Come fall, you'll go on my annual mountain trip, and I'll make you a pro hunter in a few weeks." Here we go. The local authorities placed a huge bounty on this snake, which was preying on a town in the land of water. I defeated her during my pregnancy with Kiba, and our battle lasted for 3 full days, during which her fangs nearly killed me several times. He could no longer deny that he was crushing on the former matriarch as Tsume described the last moments of the battle in an abandoned castle, but Naruto's eyes widened as she continued to describe the battle. Once more, the ideal combination of woman and warrior made his heart race in his chest. "You're amazing," he gazed at her with a fondness that promised respect and companionship. When did anyone look at her like that? Why did every fiber of her soul cry out in joy? The words were so simple that they made Tsume pause as the unfamiliar feeling of heat brightened her cheeks. The distance between them closed as if drawn together by a magnetic force neither could control. Her hands took the initiative, resting on top of his in a gentle caress of gratitude. "Mom?" The moment was broken by Hana's voice, but the rekindled fire stayed blazing in their hearts. "I'm on my way." Tsume closed the album and gave Naruto a final look of confused compassion. He smiled at her as if understanding the storm of emotions crossing her face. She returned the album to the shelf and then answered the door. "This is unexpected. Please, come in." With a raised eyebrow, Hana said, "You seem to be in excellent spirits, mother." "Huh, I didn't know you owned a dress. What's the occasion?" "I assume you know Naruto." "Naruto, this is Hana," Tsume said, gesturing to Naruto, who had lost his blush. "Just having lunch with a friend," she said. Hana offered a kind handshake, to which Naruto returned the favor. "A pleasure, welcome to the Inuzuka compound. Kiba has spoken highly of you, and your feats have earned the respect of my clan," Hana said. Even with Tsunade's teaching, he still had trouble in formal settings like these. Maybe a more sober instructor would have been more effective. "I only did what had to be done, but thank you," he said. After letting go of his arm, Hana went to face her mother and said, "I apologize for the interruption, but I need to talk to you about something." "Come back in an hour or two," Tsume said, loving her daughter, but she was too eager to reignite the spark that had momentarily ignited between her and Naruto. Even mothers needed time alone. "It cannot wait," sadly, Hana said, glancing suspiciously at Naruto and wrinkling her nose. "It is a clan matter," she said. "Well, I need to drop off the mission scroll to Kakashi. That lazy bum needs to earn his paycheck somehow," Naruto said, obviously understanding the message. "Very well, thank you for the help again, Naruto. Please do not be a stranger around here. I think Kuramaru likes you," Tsume said, letting out a sigh and gathering the soiled dishes. "He is a good dog that knows a great guy," Naruto said with one of his signature smiles to mask his disappointment at having to depart early. He needed to investigate whatever had sparked between them because he had never experienced that kind of connection with someone else. It was more intimate and reminded him of his first date with Hinata. He would need to find an expert on such matters. "Come on, I have a new stick I wish to show you, Kuramaru said as he trotted into the home, nudging Naruto's leg. I am such a good dog that I'll walk to you the gate, he said. You see what I mean? Don't be like that, hurry back, and I'll fix you an extra helping of the stew, Hana said, glaring at Kuramaru with another dubious expression that caused the wolf dog to curl its lip. Tsume grinned. On the way to the gate, the dog didn't say anything, ignoring numerous sticks that Naruto thought weren't the new stick. At last, a while out from the entrance, Kuramaru turned around and sat down to gaze at Naruto with a somber expression. Will you be coming back? What? Are you planning to continue going to Tsume? Please, the wolf dog said, pausing and bowing his head in submission, either by helping her with the dogs or just spending time with her. Without having to ponder, the response was, yes, I intend to stop by tomorrow. In fact, some mentioned nature photography, so we might take a stroll. I know some very amazing, truly hidden spots. Kuramaru inhaled deeply, relieved by the response and the candor with which it was given, and then continued walking to the front gate. Calm down, and do not speak so loudly, my ear works perfectly fine without its twin, he said. Why are you asking? I will say this, she believes these are her waning days, for her sake, please prove her wrong. You look good, Hana said while Tsume scrubbed the lunch dishes at the tiny kitchen table. It is quite the shock seeing you dressed so, she said. Good. Tsume smirked when her daughter struggled to respond. She could not help but pick on her children. What? Do you think I'm too primitive to appreciate life's little pleasures? Would someone like me be better off with a pelt that just barely covers my breasts? Maybe I could pull out my spear to finish the ensemble. Mom! You know I don't mean any of that, Hana said, inhaling deeply and pinching the bridge of her nose. Relax, let an old woman have a bit of fun with her brats. I decided to try something different today. It's always good to learn new tricks, no matter how old you are. Plus, I wanted to give Kuramaru a good shock. I saw the poor dog earlier chasing his tail, Hana said, grinning despite shaking her head. After finishing the last bowl, Tsume said, it's good to keep him on his toes, and sat down at the table. Let's get this over with, she said. There was a pause while Hana went into matriarch mode, attempting to appear and sound more authoritative. She had picked up the tactic from Tsume, but she hadn't fully mastered it. In looking over the next year's budget, we have decided it is time to reduce some of the pack sizes. As you are well aware, this is normal for those packs that aren't of particular use at the present moment. I have spoken greatly with our breeders and the Hokage about the matter and have decided to disband the last of the warbands. Some nodded but said nothing because it had already been decided that Nuke-Nin offered much more flexibility than a war dog that lived only for direct combat. She did not like the idea of getting rid of the warbands, but she recognized that they were becoming outdated in this new world. Furthermore, we have decided to sell the warbands. Pardon me? Tsume slammed her palm on the table. Sell? When did our clan start selling dogs to strangers? Mother, please, the lack of missions has hurt our income. We have multiple parties interested in buying the remaining warbands for sums far higher than what they're actually worth. These dogs have been with our clan for many years, and many of them have been in several battles. I recognize that the warbands must be disbanded, but I'll let the dogs retire. They'll make excellent friends or guard dogs with a little training, and some of them are smart enough to become Nuke-Nin. The idea of the Inuzuka deserting devoted hounds made Tsume dig into the table. Over the years, some of these hounds had been given as gifts to people who had served the clan well, but none had ever been sold like a commodity. This went against the tenets who were the backbone of the entire clan. Man and dog looked out for each other, living as a family. What if I had given you to a slick prince? Imagine a fat businessman chuckling with delight at the thought of popping your cherry. Tsume's lips curled back into a sneer. You are stealing our relatives. Mom! That's not proper. This is not the same. Tell me how offering you away to some dirty man is different than you selling members of our family off. I am not a canine. You younglings never looked at your dogs more than a tool or a pet. These dogs are our kin. To sell them is to abandon everything that we are. Our pact with our dogs makes us who we are. They trust us to guide and lead them just as we trust them to guide and lead us. To sell them is to abandon family and honor for coin, Tsume said, pushing her chair back and standing up. She had witnessed this trend developing for decades, and her own children had now adopted it. However, to the Inuzuka of old, such ideas would have been viewed as heresy. The clan is officially asking for your help, and you're one of the few handlers who can easily work with them, Hannah said, closing her eyes. She had anticipated some opposition, but not a reaction of that size. I remember the virtues I stand for. Very well, Hannah said, pushing her chair back and getting up. I won't bother you about it any longer, if you don't mind. I have other things to do. Good day. She hated to use such a tone with her own flesh and blood, but the new path her people took went against everything she believed for. In many ways, though, it made her laugh since history had a way of repeating itself. Tsume's gaze softened slightly at the sad look on her hurt daughter's face.